Hey, Christian here. You can see I've got my quarantine beard going here. I think I'm getting back to work next week, so this will all have to come off, but I guess that's what 6 weeks of not going to work does for you. So today is my wedding anniversary. I've been married to Sandy for 28 years today. I've been cooking for Sandy on the grill since we were dating, and her favorite thing, since we can't go out to dinner or do anything, is a porterhouse T-bone steak. So the way I'm going to do it this time is I'm going to sous vide the steak, and then I'm going to finish it in a cast iron pan with some brown butter dribbling over. So I'm going to take you along with everything we do, and feel free to copy this recipe. It's super easy, and I guarantee it'll be the best steak you ever had. So the first step is to get a good piece of meat. I went to my favorite butcher, Lawhon's in North Fort Myers, and they didn't have what I liked right there. So I said, hey, can you cut me something a little bigger? And so he got out a whole slab and cut off this piece. This is about 2.5 pounds, maybe just a little under. So let me show you what we're starting with. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? So a porterhouse with the bone in, this side is New York strip, and this side over here is the beef loin. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. Now, when I prepare my steaks, I keep it simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to first put on a little onion powder. Good dusting. That's a big piece of meat, so we're going to want to use a little bit of extra. A little garlic powder, or granulated garlic in this case. A little seasoned salt. This rub, by the way, is called Old School because I've been making this rub for steaks and burgers, wow, since the early 90s. So we'll give it a little rub there. And then, of course, I always go generous with my black pepper. All right, what we're going to do now is we're just going to let that sit for about 5 minutes and just let that start to soak in before we do the other side. Okay, you can see this is starting to come together. Those are starting to be absorbed into the meat. You can see how thick this is. This is just beautiful. Oh, I love this. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We'll start with the onion. Again, it's a big piece of meat, so we're going to be generous with everything. We're going to throw on the garlic. We are going to do some seasoned salt. Just get it worked around there. And some black pepper. Like I said, I always like a little extra black pepper because I think it gives the steak a little deeper flavor. Okay, now because we're going to do this sous vide, what we're going to do is I've got a vacuum bag that I've already prepared. Okay, now that we have the steak in the bag, this is the secret to this recipe. And you can skip this if you like, but I wouldn't recommend it. So I've just got some Worcestershire, and I'm just going to drizzle in a little bit of Worcestershire on that side. And a little bit on that side. Once we have that, we're going to vacuum seal the steak using our food saver. So we'll just lock that up, let it go. Now because this is so tight, I want to make sure I get that air to work out of the bottom of the bag as well, which it looks like it's doing fairly well. And we'll let that seal. Okay, now that it's done sealing, what I tend to do is I move it over one more time and I'm going to give it another seal because you can see I got a little bit of stuff on that edge and I don't want that to pop out. So we'll just go ahead and just give it one more seal without any vacuum, and that'll make sure that we don't have a bag break or burst. All right, so now we've got the double seal, so we're good to go. There's our steak, and it is ready to go into the sous vide. So I'm going to prepare that, and I'll be right back. Alright, this is the Anova sous vide, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this temperature down to 128 degrees, and I'm going to hit start. So what's going to happen is, let me see if I can just take this real quick, is you can see that there's a bath of water that is sitting in, and what it's going to do is bring that water up to 128 degrees and hold it there within like a degree. Then what we do is we put our steak in that water for 2 hours, and that'll get that steak to 128 degrees edge to edge, inside, outside, everything. It'll be perfectly cooked, medium rare. Alright, you can see that we're at 128, set time at the bottom, and current temp 128.1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our steak and just gently put it in the water. So there's our little clip to hold that in place so it doesn't move around too much. And you can see I just put it in so it drops the temperature just a little bit. It'll take probably 5 minutes for that to recover and get back up to 128. Okay, I'm out here on my camp chef now, and I'm going to start the onions and mushrooms. So what I did is I put a little bit of grapeseed oil in the pan. The key to get things to not stick in here is to make sure the pan is hot and well oiled. So now that the oil's come up to temperature, what I like to do is just throw in a little bit of butter. Oh, that's going to be good with the flavor in there. And we'll let that melt a little bit. And I've already cut up some onion. I used about half an onion because it's just Sandy and myself tonight. And about 3/4 of a tub of the mushrooms cut up. So that butter's doing what it's doing. I'm going to go ahead and roll this stuff in. Perfect. Looks like one got away. Ooh, that's hot. We'll just let that one sit. And I want to give them a little movement first. So I've got this on very low heat because this is going to take a while. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of introducing some beef stock and some Worcestershire, some good Dijon mustard. And with the beef stock, we're just going to let that slowly cook and reduce and reduce and reduce, probably 2 or 3 times before it'll be ready. What I'm going to go ahead and do is season them first, a lot like before. A little garlic, some pepper, and I left the salt inside, so I'll have to go back in and get that. And that's it. And we want to just give them a little flip. Just coat them all up with the oil and butter. Okay, now you can see that the mushrooms and onions are just starting to become translucent, so we're going to go ahead and add in the other stuff. First we're going to do is some beef broth, and I'm going to say about half a cup. The next thing is some Worcestershire sauce, and what we're going to want to do is make sure we give a little extra shake there. And then the last thing, sorry about the camera movement, but I'm holding the camera while I'm trying to cook, is just some Grey Poupon. Okay, so any Dijon mustard you like. And we're going to give that a good squirt. Roughly maybe a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. And then we're going to gently mix it. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to just let this and not do anything more to it for about 15 minutes. And this liquid that's in there is going to start reducing. And we're going to do that 2 or 3 times. You can see how nice that color is. I did find the salt, by the way. It was behind me on one of my other grills. And I added the salt, so don't forget to do that. That's going to be good. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes. This has just been bubbling away really low, but you can see how much it's reduced. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some more beef stock. And I'm going to say maybe 3/4 of a cup. And I'm going to give it a little stir. And we're going to do it all over again. I'm going to do this probably 3 times, maybe 4, depending on how long it's taking. But the more you reduce it, the more flavor you're going to get out of it. So I just don't give up on it. Okay, it's been 2 hours. Actually, it's been about 2.5 hours. And if you look at the steak, look at all that juice. This is the secret part of this whole recipe, is that juice is going to go in with the mushrooms and onions in just a second. So I've got some paper towel down, and what I'm going to do is cut this steak out of the bag without losing the juice. Oh, this is going to be good. I'm going to put it down. Look at that. And look at all that juice we have. I'm going to save that. I'm going to put that in with the mushrooms and onions. And then I've got another piece of paper towel. The reason that you want to blot this down and get the moisture off is because when you put it on a cast iron, what you're trying to do is get it to sizzle and sear quickly, because the steak is cooked all the way through. It's perfectly 128 degrees, which is medium rare. And if you have the moisture on there, what's going to happen is that's going to cause steam. And so what you're trying to do is not get the steam, but you want to get that sear. So look at that beauty. Oh, if you could smell this. This is incredible. All right, so now that I'm done with that, I'm going to add the liquid to the mushrooms and onions, and then we're going to sear this in a cast iron. Okay, here's the beautiful part. This is still bubbling. Actually, I turned it off for about an hour because the steaks were still going, and you can just leave it sit there and turn it back on when it's ready. But now this is the juice from the steaks. So what we're going to do is just pour that right in, and now you got all that juice from the steaks in your mushrooms, and we're going to let this do what we did before. We are going to let it just kind of cook down a little bit, reduce probably about 15 minutes, and then we're going to cook the steak. Oh, I wish you could smell this. This smells so good. All right, this has been going about 5 minutes with that juice from the steak in there. Look at that. That's perfect. Just kind of firm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over here and just let that sit. And I'm going to put our cast iron over here. Turn up the heat just a little bit, probably to about a medium. And I'm going to let that just go for a little bit, and I'm going to get that pan good and hot. As soon as it's hot, I'm going to add some grapeseed oil and butter. Okay, that pan's been going for a couple minutes. It's starting to sweat a little bit, so I'm going to add some grapeseed oil. You can see that's really going. So what I'm going to do is just move it around a little bit. And what's going to happen is it's going to start to bubble a little bit, and you can kind of see the ripples in the bottom of the pan. And when you start to see that, which is about now, I'm going to add some butter. I'll just keep moving it around the pan. Let it melt. And get, oh, the flavor with the butter and the steak. You can't reproduce it. It's amazing. And we're going to put that giant porterhouse T-bone in here and just let it go. Now, when we put it in at the very beginning, we're just going to let it sit on one side. We got to let it sear and get a good sear on it. So here's our steak. And if you can hear that searing, that's exactly what you want. Just let it do its thing. So we're going to leave it alone for just a couple minutes. And we're going to let that bottom part just crisp up, and then we're going to start putting the brown butter on the top of the second side. This is a 12-inch cast iron skillet, so you can just imagine the size of that piece of steak. It is enormous.
Oh my gosh, it smells so good.
What we're really trying to do here is just do it quick. We want a good sear, and that's it, because it's already fully cooked. That sear on the outside is what's going to give it the texture that is unbelievable. All right, so here we go, ready to flip. I'm going to move the butter around a little bit. And look at that sear. Oh, is that beautiful? Okay. Here's the best part. Ready? We're just going to roll this and just keep putting more of that butter on top. That's going to give it so much more flavor with all the juices and the butter. Look at that sizzle. Isn't that incredible?
Oh my goodness, I'm so hungry. It's so good.
I wish you could smell this, because the brown butter on the steak, when you sear it like that, is the most amazing thing ever. So the bottom is probably seared. So what I'm going to do is I'll take it off, I'll put it on the cutting board, I'm going to let it rest for about 5 minutes before I even begin to cut it. What that's going to do, it's going to allow all the juices inside that steak to come out and come back in so that you don't have a dry steak. Look at that. Okay, so here we go. Now, this has been resting for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, and that should allow the juices to come back into it. So look at this beautiful piece of meat. And if I do this, just watch this. Look at that. Look at that. Can I show you this? I mean, that is as juicy and perfect cooked steak as you can possibly imagine. So, sous vide first, brown butter, and what I'm going to do is when I serve this, I'm going to cut this up a little bit, and I'm going to pour a little bit more of that brown butter on top with the mushrooms. It is going to be crazy. Oh, if you could smell this. You know what? Let me just get a little taste of this. That is so tender. So full of flavor. I'm telling you, this is how you want to make steak. Follow it this way. Everybody will love you when you cook steak. And here you go. The twice baked potato, the steak with the mushrooms piled up on top. I took the liberty of cutting these into chunks so that it's just easier to eat, because we're in South Florida. We're going to be sitting on the lanai tonight. It's just easier to not have to cut the steak. So I just did it ahead of time. And this is absolutely beautiful. Next time you do the steaks, do sous vide, cast iron, brown butter, the mushrooms. Oh, you got to try this. This smells so incredible. And we're going to eat good tonight.